Good morning, brothers and sisters. How are you doing? I'm Michelle, and I'm going to be reading about the most important topic in the world. Most important one. Yeah. It's about the existence of God. And here we have 101 proofs for the existence of a very loving Father. Right? So it's going to be the 81st proof for the existence of God in this book put together over 9 years, finally, by Jim Stevens. Okay? 81, the 81st, which is called the definition of impossible. We have all heard the expression that anything could happen, and we typically accept the proposition without thinking about it too deeply. Anything could happen. If you then add in the concept of huge amounts of time or even infinity, well, then anything could happen. This is typically part of the argument for evolution. I want to take a deeper look at what might really be possible and what is in reality impossible by trying to construct a useful definition of what is impossible. I give credit for this idea to a mathematician named William Dembski in his book, The Design Revolution. He clearly put a lot of deep thought into what is possible and what is impossible and why, you will see. So put on your engineering cap. Jim is a very incredible engineer. He devises a number which he calls a universal probability limit. This is William Dembski we're talking about. This is a number limit that no reasonable person, certainly no person of science or math, could ever argue with. The number is 10 to the power of 150. The working definition is that if the likelihood of some event is less than 1 in 10 to the power of 150, it is beyond the universal limit, and it will never happen, and it could never happen. I am henceforth going to call that number the definition of impossible. Where this number comes from is very important. First, you take the number of all the protons, electrons, and neutrons in the universe. This is 10 to the power of 80. Next, you multiply that number by the number of seconds since the universe started at the Big Bang. That is 4.0 times 10 to the power of 17 seconds. Now, lastly, you multiply that by what is theoretically the smallest unit of time, the Planck unit. There are 10 to the power of 43 Planck units in a second. You have to practically be a PhD in mathematics to understand a Planck unit, but look that up if you're interested. It's something like the time it takes the speed of light to pass a proton. Now, if we multiply those three numbers together, we get 10 to the power of 80 times 4.0 times 10 to the power of 17 times 10 to the power of 43, or approximately 10 to the power of 140. Just for good measure, let's multiply this by 10 billion more, and we get the number 10 to the power of 150. This is how Dembski got the universal probability limit, or what I'm calling the definition of impossible. If the likelihood of an event is 1 in 10 to the power of 150, or anywhere close, and especially anywhere exceeding that, then it is impossible. The probability of just one DNA arranging itself by chance has been calculated to one chance in 10 to the power of 119,000. The entire visible universe is 10 to the power of 10 to is 10 to the power of 28 inches in diameter. Let me read that again. The entire visible universe is 10 to the power of 28 inches in diameter. This is from the book called In the Beginning by Walt Brown, page 12. Let's take a fairly simple example of coin flipping. There are only two possibilities for random flipping of a coin. Either it's going to be heads or it's going to be tails. What is the possibility that you can flip the coin and it will land on heads 1,000 times in a row? That's right. It would be a half times a half times a half, on and on up to 1,000. There is one chance that it's going to land on heads in 2 to the power of 1,000. That converts to one chance in 10 to the power of 301. The conclusion is that it is impossible if we use the definition we just established. So think of it this way. Even if you had one person for every proton, electron, and neutron in the whole universe, and they were flipping coins, and they could do 1,000 flips every Planck unit of time since the beginning of the universe, they wouldn't even come close to an outcome of hitting all heads in a row. They have hardly got started. The conclusion is it's impossible. The chances are just too small for it ever to happen by accident. We now have a more realistic understanding of anything can happen, right? Actually, as you can see for yourself, it can't. Did I lose you? And Jim has a really interesting conclusion to this. It sounds like just a lot of science, but keep going. It's incredible. Keep listening. Okay, so let's go one more simple step and see if that helps. Suppose instead of flipping a coin, you are rolling a die that has 6 sides and want to get the side with the 1 mark on it come up every 1,000 times in a row that you throw the dice. 1,000 times in a row, getting 1. You can see that that is way harder than getting 1,000 heads in coin flipping. It's way more impossible, right? The odds of getting a 1 would be 1/6 times 1/6 times 1/6, on and on up to 1,000. This is a much, much bigger number. Or in other words, 6 to the power of 1,000. Totally impossible. Are you with me still? We're with you. And now the final point to show that life did not happen by accident. It is totally impossible to a much, much greater degree than flipping coins or rolling dice. There are 20 to 22 different so-called standard amino acids required by all life forms, even the very simplest living cell. And those amino acids have to be perfectly arranged in a long chain in an exact order to make a functioning protein. And Jim says, if you want to read about this, go to Proof to the Existence of God, number 74, and it's called Proteins. The really simple proteins are made up of 300 amino acids in a precise order. Once the long chain is created, then it folds over and over again on itself in another exact pattern. Then proteins interact with other proteins. Let's see, we got a picture of it. There we go. Right there. The pictures in real life are incredible, much more beautiful. So the number of possible arrangements for the very simplest protein is 20 to the power of 300. That's because there are 20 to 22 possible amino acids, and you have at least 300 amino acids just to make the simplest proton. In a human being, the average functional protein has about 450 amino acids, again in a very precise order. That would be 1 out of 20 to the power of 450 random possibilities. That's the average human protein. But the number of amino acids in a single protein can go as high as 34,350 according to one source. And he's listed a couple of sources here in his book. The human body contains approximately 100,000 different unique proteins, but there are estimates up to 2 million. And just to let you know, Jim has in his book proof for all of these facts. Every different protein has a precise arrangement of the 20 to 22 amino acids. By the definition of impossible that I have proclaimed, even one single protein is impossible to occur randomly. Did you hear that? By the definition of impossible that I have proclaimed here, even one single protein is impossible to occur randomly. That's only one. But we know there are 100,000 or more different proteins, possibly 2 million in the human body. The most abundant life source on Earth, which is blue-green algae, is also one of the simplest life forms. However, as simple as it is, it still requires about 2,000 genes that each produce different protons. Any single protein is impossible by randomness, and blue-green algae requires 2,000 proteins. So, come on, Jim says, life is no accident. Just by pure science. The simplest life form could not have occurred randomly. I have shown that it is impossible by definition. Not only that, I have shown it is orders of magnitude more impossible than 1,000 heads in a row by flipping coins. So there must be God. Okay. Right. So yes, we are definitely talking about the most important thing in life, aren't we? Okay. So we thank you, Jim, for that. Okay. The next proof for the existence of God, just to give you a little bit of a taste, it's number 82. And it's the chicken or the egg Jim is talking about. Oh, wow. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great Sunday. Bye.